And my name's Ankoma Anderson. I am serving with the Anderson Area Reconciliation and Remembrance Initiative, Remembrance and Reconciliation Initiative. So kind of an update of where we are. We're still in the process of planning our soil collections throughout Anderson County. As it stands, and as we've made mention before, we have 5 lynching victims for whom we're going to recognize and collect soil for. And once we collect soil at those individual sites, we're going to come back and we're going to have a ceremony where we can bring all the soil collections together and recognize all of the lynching victims at one time. So kind of where we are now is that over the next few weeks we're really just now beginning to kick off the soil collections. At this point we're not really wanting to make a big deal because at each individual soil collection, because we can't really host a crowd at all of those locations. So several community figures will be involved. A few youth from around Anderson County will be involved in helping us to collect the soil, but we're really looking forward to having a county-wide event potentially around mid-June.
Will it be in time for Juneteenth?
So that is our hope. We're hoping, and again, I don't know if I really can say this with great on a solid as a firm date, but yes, we're trying to look around the Juneteenth time. I don't think it'll actually be on Juneteenth, maybe not even that Saturday, but potentially during the previous week, the week prior to that. So that's kind of where we are right now. So those plans are not finalized. This is still kind of a work in progress. And the reason for this is that, of course, we had initially planned to actually start the soil collection, I believe, at the end of January. But of course, COVID numbers rose back up again, and so we wanted to take precaution to make sure that everyone was safe, and actually several people who were going to be involved in the process, and I'm glad we did, actually, kind of were exposed to the virus at that point. So we feel confident that we made the best decision to postpone.
And the soil collections is just sort of a kickoff of things to come moving forward. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So the soil collection most definitely is a kickoff. This is just the beginning. Even though it's a big deal, it's really the commencement of what we hope to be a continuous educational process for our community, Anderson County. So there are several arms to the involvement in this project. There's an educational piece where we're hoping to get school districts involved. Potentially we'll have a writing contest, maybe even potentially an art display that may be a traveling art display. We'll give you details about that in the coming weeks or months, because we've had several donations, large donations for that matter, to help us to create a traveling art display that will travel to several locations around Anderson County that will give various communities throughout Anderson an opportunity to be involved in this process. So it is our hope in doing this that this would not necessarily be an isolated event of collecting soil and having the ceremony again potentially around June, but we're hoping that this would be a growing process for years to come, and something that our community will really rally behind and rally around, I should say.
Have you got pretty good response so far from the community in terms of cooperation and groups working together?
Yeah, I believe so far we've had great cooperation. Of course, there are always going to be those who have a different perspective, as to why we're doing this. But as I always like to take the opportunity to say, us doing this is an opportunity for us to move towards some sense of reconciliation about the treacherous history of Anderson County, and more specifically, the trauma that has been involved in the lives of African Americans, of course the lynching victims, but also the trauma that is attached to their families, those who were in their circle at that time. But that trauma is passed on from generation to generation. And so we're trying to move towards a place of reconciliation, not to unbury and to bring up controversial issues per se, but at the same time, in order to really move forward, those issues have to be talked about. Those issues have to be named. And so, therefore, we believe it is important first to remember. If we don't remember, there's no reconciliation. So remembering brings the trauma, it brings the history to light, so that we can move toward a place of reconciliation, because reconciliation requires that we acknowledge what has taken place. And so when we speak about these lynching victims, many of us in Anderson County have never heard about these things, but yet there is embedded trauma in the families of these individuals in Anderson County and even beyond Anderson County. And so we're looking to provide some sense of closure, and I use that loosely to say closure, because closure emotionally and closure for the trauma, but not closure in the sense of forgetting that this has happened, so that we can move forward.
And these five that they've been able to actually document are in some ways representative of a much larger number that we can't document. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, most assuredly. I definitely believe, although we've identified 5 lynching victims in Anderson County, I dare say that there are many more that are undocumented in Anderson County and beyond. And so, again, yes, these individuals are simply representative, or represent. They're symbolic of the many lives that were lost, and the families that they are attached to. It is representative of many families who have experienced such trauma, and I'll even go on to say that those who even experience trauma today with traumas or even lynchings that are still going on in African American communities today.
And once these samples are gathered and cataloged and everything, they'll join others at the National Museum, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So what will happen, again, we'll collect the soil. We'll collect the soil in these containers that are designed or collected at the National Museum, and so we'll take them there and potentially do a ceremony there. But it is our hope as well that Anderson County will have a display of the jars for the sake of remembering, because it is a part of our history here in Anderson County. So again, that's history that needs to not be forgotten. It may be a terrible part of our history, but it is in the fabric of who Anderson County is today. And so, if it is something that's happened in the past, it is a part of the contextual lens of Anderson County. And so it helps us to understand how Anderson County sees and deals with the social realities of life. So it is important for us, again, not to sweep this under the rug, to make sure we talk about it.